Sorry, I had a little problem with my mouse. The next term I want to throw at you is the orographic effect. And what the orographic effect is, basically it describes how weather patterns move across mountains. Now, I know we don't have a whole lot of mountains in Mississippi, but the effect is something that is predominant across the world. What happens is you have a storm system, winds, rain, whatever, that move from one side, like here it moves from west to east. And you can see as the winds move the systems toward the mountains, the systems actually rise, and as the systems rise, they cool. And as they cool, they condense, kind of like when you bring a cold Coke can out of a refrigerator and put it down on a table. The condensation, water from the air around the can gathers on the can itself. Same thing here. It's the condensation, the cooling of the air that gathers in the clouds that forms droplets of water. And enough of those droplets of water combine that you get precipitation, rain. And that rain falls on this side of the mountain here. And as the elevation gets higher, that rain turns to snow. And so you'll see snow on the side of a mountain. But as you go over that mountain, the storm systems, the clouds descend, they don't condense as much, they dry out, and so you'll find a wet side of a mountain, or the windward side of the mountain, and a dry side of the mountain. A perfect example of this are the Sierra Nevadas in California. On the east side of the Sierra Nevadas is the Central Valley, where cities like Stockton, Fresno, Modesto are located. And they get plenty of rain, they grow lots of crops. Once you cross over that mountain range, though, you get to Las Vegas, which is extremely dry. And that's why. It's because it's on the leeward side of a mountain. Another term I want to throw at you is glaciation. A glacier is a large sheet of ice, is basically what it is. And these large sheets of ice act as bulldozers that slowly move, and as they move, they pick up dirt, soil, rocks with them and weather away these valleys like this. And eventually they can wear away enough of a valley that a lake can form once they melt up or melt away. Another term is erosion. Erosion is any process by which dirt, soil, rocks weather away, wash away. Here's an example of a bank, just the side of a hill, side of a mountain, that the rain has washed away parts of it and created these little gullies. That's what erosion is. There's also wind erosion, where wind can pick up certain sand, dust, and pick it up, pull away from the soil. Plate tectonics, you see on page 21 in your book if you're following along. These are massive plates that make up the crust of the earth. And these plates collide into each other, bump into each other, move apart from each other, go one under the other one. And what you have is earthquakes. And where these plates meet, sometimes you'll find volcanoes or geysers. And these plates aren't just completely solid. These plates have little pieces, little chunks of them also. For example, there have been earthquakes in Missouri. Now, Missouri is in the middle of this huge plate, but there's nothing, you don't see any borders on this plate. What you see is just a big solid plate, but there are little cracks all in these plates. So earthquakes happen everywhere, not just along the major fault lines, because those are major fault lines, but there are shorter, smaller fault lines inside of the big ones. Now we look at the cultural elements, the things that I love the most. Things like language, religion, race, ethnicity. We'll get to those here. Languages. Languages are the words we speak, and there are lots of different languages. This is all under the Indo-European languages, and you can see languages like Hindi, which is spoken in India, is somewhat related to Iranian, which in Iran they actually speak Farsi, which is a relative of that. You also see other languages like Welsh and Scottish, which are cousins, very closely related to Irish. With the Latin languages, you can see how French and Spanish and Portuguese and Italian are all pseudo-related to each other, and there are many words they share. But you also have Germanic languages, and you can see the Germanic languages over here, how they trickle down, and you have these different languages that split off of German. You have German and Yiddish. But you can see where English, Old English, which was a Germanic language, mixed with French with the Norman invasion, and so you get Middle English, which becomes Modern English, which is what we speak today. So Modern English is basically the child of Latin and German languages. Here's an example of, and you can kind of see counting 1 to 10 in several different languages: Serbian, German, Russian, Italian, Spanish. You can see see, Spanish and Italian are related because they have the same word for one. Quattro, quattro. It's spelled differently, but it still sounds the same. Spanish and Italian. Seis, ocho, otto. You can kind of see how Spanish and Italian are related. And then you get to German. German, you can kind of see, is one of the fathers of English. Sechs, 6. Sieben, 7. Echt, 8. So you can kind of see how German and English are related. But also Serbian and Russian are both Serb languages. And you can see like 2 is va. 3, try, whatever. You can kind of see how they are similar all the way down through. So you can see how languages and how people trace languages by finding words they have in common. There are a couple of terms I want to throw at you here. First is dialect. Dialect is a form of a language. Like we may speak in a Southern or an American dialect, which means the words that we use are English, but they're a different form of English as opposed to British English, like the word lift. Like when we think of lift, we think of picking something up. If you go to England, though, and you say, I'm taking the lift, you're taking an elevator. A lorry is a delivery truck. A bobby is another word for a cop. Accent is the way we pronounce those words. Like the word fine. If I were to say the word fine like this, no big deal. If I say fine like this, a little more Australian accent, or fine like this, that's a Southern accent. Those are just the way the words are pronounced. Pidgin is a Creole, or Pidgin language is a Creole language. It's actually a mix of 2 or more languages. Creole languages are typically languages that are mixed native languages with maybe an African language and an English language. You can find these languages in places like the Caribbean. South Louisiana, they speak a Creole language. It's a mix of native languages along with French. Rihanna, pop star Rihanna, she sings songs that have Creole terms in them. Pon de replay really means put on the replay, but it's a Creole, a Pidgin word, pon, which means to put it upon, play it again. Lingua franca is the official language of business of a region, but it may not be spoken in many of the homes. For example, if you go to Bolivia in South America, many of the people in Bolivia will speak Amharic, which is a native language, but the lingua franca of the region is Spanish, because Spanish is the language of business and it's the official language of the country. Religion, we'll talk a lot about religions. This is a Muslim mosque, but this is a holy site, a sanctuary for Muslims. Race is another one of my favorite terms. That's actually me. That's me and my cousin's little girl. She's really sweet. But race is actually a mix of ethnicity, skin coloration, ancestry, and use of words like language. What race are you? We really don't know what race we all are. We can trace our family back several decades, centuries maybe, but do we really know that everyone in our family line is white or black or Asian? No, we have no proof of that. So we may be a mix, which we all are really and truly, a mix of a bunch of different languages, or a bunch of different races, I'm sorry. But we still use race in things like medicine because, for example, African American people are more prone to sickle cell anemia, which is a racial, it's not a racial profile, but it's true, and it's true of that race. We still use it also in law enforcement, census data, and anthropology. You can look at different skull shapes of people. I like to watch the TV show Bones. And she can look at the skull shape of a person and say, this person is of European ancestry because of the way her face looks. Or anyway, they can use different specific racial markers to determine a person's race to a degree. Now, this is my cousin's little girl, and she's half black, half white. So what race is she? She's not really a race. She's mixed. Because race is a social construct. It's something that we create. We determine what race we are. Ethnicity is where you're from, where your people are from. Like Latino is a good example. Those are people from Latin America. Population is another thing we're going to look at. You can see this is a graph of what we predict population is going to be. Finally, I'll stop with this, state. We use the word state to represent a division of the country, but technically a state actually is a country. But we like to use the word state to describe part of a country because when the 13 colonies were first founded, they were each individual countries. But over time, they were a confederation at first. Now they are the United States. So now we see them as subdivisions of a country, but technically the word state really means country.